discovered Meiling through She Caribbean magazine. And I used to buy She Caribbean magazine because Caribbean designers weren't really represented in mainstream magazines. And I remember seeing Meiling for the first time in person. And it's so funny because I didn't go up to her and say hi as much as I wanted to, because I've always looked at her as this huge powerhouse in Caribbean fashion. And I think it's amazing that to this day, she still exudes that amazing presence in our industry.
I mean, I really had to figure it out myself. This question has been coming to me for the last 3 years. This is what makes a brand.
So I know when I was younger, I went through this phase of, this is what I want to be when I grow up. Did you have that phase where you always knew you wanted to be a fashion designer?
Absolutely. I knew that fashion would be the career for me. My world was my mother's sewing room. My mother was one of Trinidad's best needlewomen. And I literally grew up in her sewing room. And I remember clearly having to write an essay when I was 11 as, what do you want to do? And I said, I wanted to be a fashion designer. So whether it was by osmosis, I was blessed with a talent, dressing my dolls all the time until I was about 16, I knew from a very early age that this was my life. And I'm so happy now that I still have the passion for choosing this career.
One of the things I've heard is how much people love coming to your studio. So how do you plan to implement that same face-to-face, in-person warmth that you get with your studio experience?
I think I'm really learning more about it because I actually try to have a conversation, not just ship the garment, but have a conversation either when they DM me, or WhatsApp is a great thing, so I can actually pick up the phone and introduce myself to the client. And you know, the thing is that people have really hooked onto it because I suppose they have, even in Trinidad, people think I'm not accessible. The name has been around, my label has been around for so long. Some people say it's how I look, my hair all black, the glasses, so they feel a little bit intimidated. But this interaction with the client, either on WhatsApp or DM, or makes it a little bit more personal. And really, this is the way we have to go now. It has to be a very personal, emotional experience of selling.
Was there a mentor or someone in fashion that you looked up to that influenced your decisions?
I think my mom and also my dad were there when it came to discipline. And I think what I apply now, the work ethic I apply to my brand, was definitely came from my parents. In terms of my work, my mother was a very hard taskmaster in finish, in timely deliveries, and I looked at how she ran her business. And she was always very, very critical of my work, complimenting or pulling it to bits. As I went on, I started to work with Peter Minshall, the great costume designer of Carnival, and because I'd never studied costume, and he mentored me in that genre of working in costume. So I think he was a very, very instrumental in my life, but I think my parents were the ones who really mentored me from an early age.
So in the early days of establishing your brand, what was the response like when you moved away from the Caribbean aesthetic that people were so used to?
Well, I think coming back at the end of the early 70s, mid 70s, the fashion scene in Trinidad was at least 10 years behind the rest of the world. So I came back with a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends coming back at the same time and wanting to find the fashion that they were new in, whether they were studying in New York or Europe. So coming back at that time really worked for me. My timing was right because there was no aesthetic, there was no specific look in Trinidad. So I just found my voice, and it took me a few years to find my signature. I mean, it was trial and error, but what I did from the start had an audience, and it grew. And I knew what I wanted, that this whole minimal look was my signature. And I just developed it even more and always was determined to go to the beat of my own drum. I kept up, and I still do, with what is happening internationally in fashion, but I don't really believe in too many trends. And I believe a designer must always have a signature. So wherever they see a garment, they can say, this is the Meiling.
I think one of the common discussions that happen around the Caribbean fashion industry is, you know, manufacturing and production. How have you overcome some of these challenges?
Well, I really am one who is always up for challenges. And I think if you you really want something, you kind of find a way. It wasn't easy. I mean, getting fabrics that I really liked until I could afford to go away and get stuff that I really wanted to work with. You know, at one time there was a negative list, or the taxes were high bringing in fabrics into the country. But I found a way, and I think now I'm still learning because times change. Even now, things are taking longer to come into the country because of the pandemic. Shipping costs, for instance, kept me from doing, shipping out of Trinidad kept me from really getting this online shop going, because sometimes the shipping cost was more than the garment that I was sending away. So thank God that now it's more affordable. And I mean, in a career, any career, fashion, whatever career, there are always hurdles, and you have to really try to figure it out yourself. I mean, I really had to figure it out myself because I was the first real designer doing this at the moment. And even now I'm still trying to figure out this whole online shopping experience for my clients.
I think one of the key things about fashion designers being able to have a successful brand is being able to attend buying events. How have you overcome that with the fact that the Caribbean doesn't have this infrastructure?
It's time that the Caribbean makes a mark on the international market, because I think there are lots, not just in Trinidad, but throughout the Caribbean, Jamaica, great designers, but somehow we have not been able to break through that barrier to get like Africa is doing it now. And well, we know about all the other big cities, Paris, New York, you know, Italy. Really, so much has changed in the world in the last few months. I don't even know where we're going to start. Globally, you know that my industry has collapsed. Globally, you have all these shops, big ones, small ones. So it will always be starting over and looking at the industry in a new way. And hopefully then, because everybody is talking about sustainability and slow fashion is a thing that people want, they would look to the Caribbean, because we certainly can. We do not do fast fashion. And I think that especially Gen Zs are paying attention to who are the manufacturers of their clothing. They don't want huge fast fashion brands. They want the experience of shopping. They want to know who is making their clothes. They want to know that we're doing it in an ethical way. And I think this is what we have to, you know, this may get us in the door.
So Meiling, I would consider you as a powerhouse in the fashion industry in the Caribbean. What would you say to up-and-coming young fashion designers who look up to you?
Do the work. Social media, for every likes don't translate into dollars. And I find that a lot of young people, even when they choose a career, they think it's a glamorous job. They do not understand that there's hard work. And I always say, do the work and then look to the spotlight. And if the work is good, you will end up where you want to end up. But if you're not doing the work and you just think, oh, but I have so many likes on Instagram and I have 1 million followers and I have this, but you're not producing a good garment and you're not being consistent in what you do, then it's a farce. So you really have to have the passion. I mean, it took me years and I mean, I'm happy to say that my brand after 40 plus years is still relevant, but I'm still in my studio at 5, very early, working long hours, because I'm a true believer that you must do the work, you must follow up, you must have a strong work ethic.
So as a woman who's devoted, you know, most of her life to her brand, what are some of the personal sacrifices that you felt you've had to make?
Sometimes I've had to work long hours that I should, and I would have sacrificed time with my child. But on the whole, I think I was quite fortunate. I think too, you know why? Because the time is because my studio is at my home. So it's not about, you know, not having time at home or not having, I know that my Sundays are sacred. I try not to do anything on Sundays. Sundays are for family. Sundays are for my silence. But really, I can't think, I mean, sacrifice that when I was building it, I would put the money into buying more fabric than buying anything for myself. You know, like new shoes or a new handbag, and I'll say no, that. But on the whole, I'd never thought of it as a sacrifice. I think I just went along life loving what I did and putting all the time and energy that I had into it.
So my final question to you, Meiling, what piece of golden advice would you give to your younger self?
Go forward bravely. Don't be intimidated by anything and don't look back. Just go forward with a determination that you are good, to believe in yourself, and know that dreams do come true.